Hello and welcome to this new video in which we will talk about the AI in my game, which I'm currently working at. So first of all, this what you see is in Miro. It's a website. I will just link it down in the description. This is no advertisement. I just name what I'm using. So let's start with how we get to know how the AI works. It will just be an overview as we can't go into detail as it would take a long time. So yeah, to decide what the AI needs to do, it's really helpful if you look at what the player has to do. So in a RTS-like game like mine, the player has to build structures or buildings, recruit forces there, and send the forces around. This, of course, is just on a really top level, but yeah, this is how you can see it, and we can combine these two things in a money loop and send forces around in a command loop. So the money loop just decides, hey, do we need a new building or a new force, and can we afford it, etc. And the command loop just decides, yeah, where do the forces need to go, and yeah, basically exactly this. So let's start to have a look at a more detailed graph or visualization. So on the money loop, we need to know, hey, do we need a new building? Because maybe we don't, or maybe we can't afford one. If yes, then which building should we build? And then we just execute it. So build the building, and the same goes for forces. Do we need a new force? If yes, which force? And then recruit a force. But of course, to answer these questions, you need to take into account a lot of parameters. But yeah, we will talk more about that later. So let's have a look at the command loop. Here we need to know if there is a big danger. So for example, the player attacks the AI base with a huge army, then we might need to send all forces back to prevent our death. So then we need to decide which forces we send back, if all of them or not all of them, and yes, just execute. And if there's no big danger, we just need to know, hey, how many forces and which forces do not have a command. So they are just idle or protecting something, and then we can give those forces new commands. And yeah, this is basically how the command loop works. So now let's have a look at one question. Which building should I build? Now, if you really think through it, it gets complicated. Here you can see a more detailed graph on how this question can be answered. And you can see, okay, there is a lot of stuff going on. We won't go through all of this because, it's really a little bit complicated, and it's not important on how exactly it works, but rather that you have to take into account many factors, and this is why it takes a long time to develop this AI and why I'm still not finished with it. But I'm making progress, and we'll just have a quick look so you know that I didn't write any nonsense here. So first of all, we need to know how many buildings we have. For example, if you're a player and you start, then the first thing you do is build a building which is good as a starting point. So for example, definitely a building where you can recruit forces, as forces are really important. Therefore, you of course have to consider the costs and the forces you can build there, and of course the force stats, and then decide which building suits you best. Of course, there still can be a random factor. We don't want the AI to always do the same, but he shouldn't be done. So for example, building ramps at the beginning would not make too much sense, especially right now because the stats are pretty shit. So yeah, if we already have a recruiting building, we need to know, hey, which building do we need now? A military building or a recruiting building? Therefore, we need to know, hey, how much gold do I get every second, and especially, do I get more gold every second than I can spend in forces? Because if yes, then it might make sense to build a new recruiting building to produce more forces. Of course, then we have the force cap, so it's not in the game yet, so you could even remove it from this graph here, because it's not in the game yet. So theoretically it is, but at the current moment it's set to, I don't know, 10,000 or something like that. And then of course, yeah, how many gold pits do we have captured? And also a little bit the game situation. And yeah, then again, which military building and where. So for example, if you want to build a tower, then where do we build it? At the base, at the gold pit, at the other position, and which building? Do we want to build a wall? Do we want to build towers, or even others, which are not in the game yet? And with the recruiting building, it's a little bit like above. We need to consider the cost, the available forces, but also we might have information on enemy forces and structures, and therefore we know, hey, he has a huge wall and a lot of towers, we might need rams, or he has only archers who have not a lot of health, so maybe a force which does splash damage is the best one in this case. And yeah, this all needs to be considered for this question. And yeah, of course the commands are also really complicated, but we won't dive into detail on every question. I just wanted to show you an example so you can relate or understand why it takes so long to develop the AI. But yeah, be hyped, I'm making progress, and I'm hoping to present to you Prototype 4 in a few weeks. And obviously the Prototype 4 AI will not be absolutely perfect, but it will already be a really good starting point. And you already saw even the random AI, which just built random buildings and recruited random forces, was really good in some matches. So yeah, I think it definitely makes fun. I already have an AI, but it is not answering all questions right now. So these two questions, do I need a new building or do I need a new force, are already answered. But which building should I build? We already calculate a start building, but later on we don't exactly know which building we build. So this is, for example, a method that I still need to implement. And also the command loop is already working. I have everything set up, and I already can gather all idle forces and send them around, but I currently don't give them specified paths. So currently they are taking the quickest paths, but yeah, this might also change in the future, because yeah, sometimes it's better to work a longer way because there's a gold mine that is not captured yet, for example. Then this makes probably more sense, something like that. So yeah, this was already it with the video. I hope you found it interesting and you learned something, and you are hyped for the Prototype 4 with the AI. So yeah, have a nice day, and goodbye.